Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Elijah. I have no clever intro today. You know what we're here to talk about. I made jokes last time about Ronald Guzman, Andrew Suarez instead of the Orioles sale. This is not that. I'm not doing that. The Orioles have acquired Corbin Burnes in exchange for DL Hall, Joey Ortiz, and the 34th pick in the upcoming MLB Draft. On this pod, we have talked ad nauseum about the Orioles' need to go and get a top shelf starting pitcher. And I mean, did they ever? Corbin Burnes, excuse me, I'm getting choked up now. he is undoubtedly, one of the top 5 starting pitchers in baseball. There are just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have acquired his services for the full year of 2024. And I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. Going back to the start of 2020, Corbin Burnes is 5th in innings pitched. He is 5th in ERA. If you don't like ERA and prefer ERA estimators, he's 3rd in FIP. He's 2nd in xFIP. He's 3rd in Sierra, so they're even better than his ERA. He's 4th in WHIP. His average WHIP since 2020, since the start of 2020, including the COVID season, is an even 1, which is obscene. For reference, Kyle Bradish, who I think all Orioles fans would agree had a pretty darn good year last year, his whip was up 1.04. So Corbin Burnes over the last 4 seasons has averaged fewer base runners allowed than Kyle Bradish did last year. Continuing on, since 2020, he is 2nd in WAR, combo of the value he provides on a per inning basis and just the volume he pumps out. And, he's averaging striking out more than 30% of the hitters he faces, which is also a top 10 rate since 2020. He's just in terms of the volume you will get from him, he will go out there, he will eat innings. People talked about who's going to replace the innings that Kyle Gibson was throwing. Corbin Burnes last year threw more innings than Bradish did, and on a significantly, higher performance level. So that's who's replacing it. And you're not just replacing it, you're upgrading. You are getting, 2x the value of a Kyle Gibson being in your rotation by just sticking Corbin Burnes in and letting him work for a year. So I guess, there have been some people talking about his performance last year, potentially calling it a sign of regression. The first thing that I'll say is that even if, we're going to talk more specifically about first half or second half here in a second, but even if this was the body of work we were acquiring, it's a 3.39 ERA over 193 innings. He struck out 200 guys. His whip was a 1.07. This was even if he had been this guy all year and it was just a little bit of a downtick, he lost some velocity, whatever. This is a guy you want at the top of your rotation regardless. That guy might not, be better than Kyle Bradish, but the Corbin Burnes we expect to get is, quite frankly, and there are not 10 other people in baseball that I would say that about. I'm not going to look for what went wrong in the first half. It could be kind of any number of things. There can be nagging injuries from the ramp-up process through spring training. Sometimes it just takes a minute to settle into your mechanics. Whatever it is, the important thing to note is that, it didn't go, he was fading down the stretch and showing signs of his age. It was something in some way, shape, or form that got corrected. In the second half, the OPS against him was 553. And my favorite thing in doing these little deep dives is connecting a stat like that to something Orioles fans will understand, and that I will understand. So Taron Vavra, in his time last year, if you remember, he came up and was really just exceedingly bad with the Orioles, and then he went back down, and we, largely forgot about him. Taron Vavra had a 560 OPS in his time with the Orioles. The average hitter against Corbin Burnes in the second half of the Major League Baseball season 2023 was a worse hitter than Taron Vavra was for the Orioles last year. That is really like you cannot overstate how good that is. It's obscene. It's like you are making people who make millions of dollars look very, very bad at their jobs. And yeah, so that equates to a 51 OPS plus, which effectively means the average hitter against Corbin Burnes is half as good as the average hitter against the entire rest of the league. The guy is incredible. It's incredible. And, like I said, he ended on a high note. His best month was July. But the next best month of the year was September. It was the end of the season. He had a 2.51 ERA. He struck out over 4 guys for every one that he walked. This is a guy who was finishing on a very high note. And besides the July month that I mentioned, September was his best. But in that July month, the OPS plus against him was 8. And I mean 8. That's the only digit. He pitched 39 innings. He allowed 15 hits in the whole month. He struck out 47 guys. And the triple slash against him was a 115 batting average, a 218 on base percentage, and a 169 slugging. This isn't an entire month. So, the peak performance of this guy is making somebody look like a AA call-up. It's just, he can befuddle hitters in the most astonishing ways. And I guess to get into that, diving straight into what actually makes him the elite performer that he is, it's like, just look at his stuff. The stuff is just juicy. I mean, oh my God. This is like, if you are a fan of good pitching, this is the guy. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to stop fanboying. He throws 5 pitches. He throws a cutter more than half the time. Okay, I'm going to fanboy a little bit more. He is like one of my absolute favorite pitchers to watch for a long, long time because of this pitch, because of the cutter. It is like what defines him. Like I said, he throws it more than half the time. I think what's so like artful about it is very few players will throw backdoor cutters with any kind of regularity. And cutters, to an opposite-handed batter are typically a pitch that is to be worked in under the hands. You'll see Pitching Ninja say a quote-unquote dead zone cutter. It's the one that you can throw kind of, it starts right on the inside black, cuts under somebody's hands, and they, swing over the top of it or roll over to the first baseman. Or if it's a righty against a lefty pitcher, roll over to the third baseman. These dead zone cutters are the way that they're usually deployed against the opposite hand. And that's just not always how he works. He definitely does still. And he will devastate people with that inside cutter. But he will backdoor it, and he has such an incredible command of this cutter. And the thing is up to 98 miles an hour. It's a disgusting pitch stuff-wise. And, he just has this pinpoint command with it to both sides of the plate. Go search Pitching Ninja for gifs of Corbin Burnes' cutter. I mean, it is so astonishing the way he commands this pitch. Okay, back on track. So, throws 5 pitches. That cutter I just lauded for a couple minutes. That cutter more than half the time. A curveball is his primary secondary. Then he throws a changeup, slider, and a sinker. So to look at the quality of each of those pitches by Stuff Plus, of anybody who threw 100 innings pitched, which is a good way of windowing out, just windowing out who is a starter versus a reliever. Emmanuel Clase has a better Stuff Plus on his cut fastball, and that's understandable because he throws it, 101 miles an hour 20 times a game, and that's it. Corbin Burnes, of anybody who's thrown 100 innings pitched, comparing him to starters, has the best cut fastball, the 5th best slider, and by the way, some guy named Kyle has the best slider. He has the 2nd best curveball, the 13th best sinker, down there with names like Marcus Stroman. And then he just like throws a changeup too for the heck of it, like I said. That is 4 pitches. Well, the first 3 pitches, he's within the top 5 in baseball. The 4th pitch, like I said, Marcus Stroman, it's like it's a top 15 pitch. It's like it's what absolute guys, absolute dudes will feature as their best pitch if you can get it into the top 15 of the game. That's just like his 4th pitch. And he throws, he throws a changeup too. It's kind of obscene. Among those who threw 100 innings last year, like same metric, he's 2nd in baseball by measure of stuff plus, just behind Graham Ashcraft. Graham Ashcraft, for those who don't know, is I guess he's not that young anymore, but in the first couple years of his career over with the Reds, has just devilish stuff. Also throws like 98 mile an hour cutters, also has this wicked slider. He has no command though, so being behind Graham Ashcraft by no means Corbin Burnes is a worse pitcher than Graham Ashcraft. He is just ahead, again in terms of stuff plus, of our boy. Once again, you're gonna hear a lot of comparisons to Kyle Bradish in this. Kyle Bradish is 3rd and Spencer Strider is 4th. So the entire arsenal as a whole, by Fangraphs, Saris's stuff plus metric, is the 2nd best in the game of any starting pitcher. The stuff is just going to blow you away. It's going to be such a treat to watch him throughout the course of this year. I'm so excited. So if you turn over to Baseball Savant, in terms of run value, and I should say run value accumulates, so the fact that Corbin Burnes throws his cutter half the time, whereas most people, will use it as a complementary pitch, that does benefit Burnes here. And the fact that he throws, 190, 200 innings in a season will also benefit him here. But so by run value still, 88th percentile in fastball run value, and that cutter is the most valuable cutter in the game. Buck Showalter, I know I keep harping on the cutter, but Buck Showalter once said, think Mariano Rivera as a starter when he was talking about Burnes. 88th percentile in fastball run value, 89th percentile in breaking ball run value, 89th percentile in off-speed run value. So the fastball, talked about the cutter, the breaking balls are, generating as much value over the course of a season as, as 9 out of 10 pitchers in the MLB, and then the changeup is right with it. I think what's kind of interesting about him is that if you look at his arsenal from a movement standpoint, and, we were all just talking about stuff. If you look at his arsenal from the standpoint of movement, there's a really, really stark difference between his pitches that move arm side and the pitches that move glove side. Everything that moves glove side from strictly a movement standpoint and generating action on the ball, everything that moves glove side is just top of the line. I mean, cannot be messed with by normal human mortal beings. Everything that moves arm side, however, is slightly below average to, maybe even solidly below average in some ways. Like his sinker's horizontal movement is multiple inches off of the average. So this is kind of common amongst pitchers in that you'll get somebody who can, I guess what I'm trying to say, you'll get somebody who will either favor pronating the ball or supinating, so to speak. And so I guess a good example of 2 guys on the Orioles, you can talk about Kyle Bradish as a guy who supinates. And when you think about those 2 words, pronation versus supination, I guess I'll back up. Supination is, you think if you hold your hand out in front of you and you turn so that your pinky's down, almost like you're going to shake somebody's hand. That's supination. Pronation is putting your pointer finger down and your thumb down. And basically, those are the 2, main ways that a pitcher will invoke movement on a ball. If you are supinating, you're coming around the ball. That's how you get a breaking ball. If you are pronating, that's how you get your sinkers, your changeups, etc. Things that will move to the arm side. And so typically, whether it's a matter of, your hand positioning as you load, whether it's the arm angle that you come through at, whatever it is, pitchers will usually be better at one or another. And so it's very simple, but Corbin Burnes is better at supinating. It's like he is able to generate action on pitches that move to his glove side because just the way that his arm and his body works, he's able to come around the ball in this really, really impressive way. But what's awesome about him is that he and the Brewers have crafted an arsenal to, work with that sort of preference in his body. And so I just told you he gets as much value from his changeup as 9 out of 10 pitchers in MLB, despite, solidly below average movement, like I said. And the separator is really the ability to locate that and the ability to play off the rest of his arsenal. I think the best example of this, despite the stuff plus rating of 82 on the changeup, his pitching plus rating on it is a 112. And pitching plus is just an extension of stuff plus that incorporates, when you use the pitch and, the location you throw it at. So, and there are more factors too, of course. I'm just trying to simplify it. So the way that he uses the changeup, despite it being solidly below average on the stuff plus scale, makes it 12% better than league average as a pitch. He just uses this pitch so effectively. And like I said, it generates as much value as 9 out of 10 changeups in the game over the course of a season. So this guy is somebody who just really, really understands himself on a fundamental level, knows what makes him good, and, credit to the Brewers for helping to bring him along to this point. Obviously, this was not just him in a vacuum, but, he has developed himself into this unbelievable weapon. And he understands himself from the standpoint of what makes him really effective, and he knows his weaknesses too, and has turned them into strengths, I guess is the simplest way to say it. So this is doubly awesome for the Orioles because in my eyes, I look at him and I see what we all want Kyle Bradish to be. And this is not to take anything away from Kyle Bradish. It's just Kyle Bradish has done it for one season. This guy has done it for 4. There are really, really solid parallels between these two guys. Bradish is really following a very similar progression. He came up, he did not really do all that well in his first year. Burnes was a similar deal. He struggled in 2019. And then, Burnes has obviously turned himself into what he is. Bradish, we saw him in the back half of 2022, and we saw him this year. His breaking stuff is out of this world. His four seam has next to no arm side run. It's a similar kind of deal. Bradish does not come around the inside of the ball, does not pronate as well, is not able to generate arm side movement as well as he is coming across the ball, and generating glove side movement. So yeah, Bradish's four seam has 9.3 inches less than the average four seam of arm side run. So what did we do? We went ahead, as the Orioles, I was involved in it. The Orioles went ahead and, we have seen the development of Bradish's changeup and his sinker over the last 2 years. And obviously the intent with both of those pitches is to complement the arsenal that he has to kind of fill a hole in movement. It's if I'm a right-handed hitter standing in against Kyle Bradish and he does not have the changeup or the sinker or anything that can move in on my hands, I know everything is going to be diving away. I'm, scooting up on the plate a little bit and looking to shoot something to right field when I see it diving away from me. You have to have that sort of balance in your arsenal to have something that can come in on these major league hitters, give them a different look. And in 2022, Bradish was trying to develop the changeup. I don't know if I talked about it on this pod, maybe on Twitter or whatever, but he was throwing the changeup really hard. like throwing it on the order of 89, 90 miles an hour when he first started working it. And, we had all said it was like kind of trying to fill that sinker hole, the like little bit of arm side movement, slight change in velocity. But this year, he's gone heavy on the sinker. Bradish generated 6 runs across the course of the year on his sinker. I guess for a little bit of context, that's comparable to what Burnes developed on his changeup. It's not the same percentile or whatever, but because sinkers and fastballs get used more often, so they'll generate more value over the course of a season. But, it was a solidly positive pitch. And the reason for that is because, we see Bradish and he's got this incredible, incredible glove side movement, but it is forcing hitters to stay back and respect the inside part of the plate. A right-handed hitter, that is. So, so all in all, this is like for Kyle Bradish, who had this first taste of success and is looking to move forward in his career, developing, like the type of pitcher that he is. I think there is just nobody better. Corbin Burnes has 2 incredible breaking balls. Kyle Bradish has 2 incredible breaking balls. And they have, kind of taken similar paths to success, I guess is the simplest way to say it. And there are a lot of similarities in how they work. So I guess to that extent, like there are reports that Bradish and Kramer both have done work to model their games after Corbin Burnes. So, like just bringing the guy in and saying, okay, so that thing that I've been trying to emulate for years, can you tell me how exactly you do that? And I don't know, I think this is just like a great fit. He's 29 years old right now. He's going to play this season at 29. He's a solid veteran at this point in his career. He has playoff experience, good playoff experience, not just like got there once like Jack Flaherty. Flaherty had pitched a little bit more in the playoffs, but it's like he's a true professional. So like just beyond the pitch arsenal similarities with Burnes and why I think he'd be good from that sense, I think it's also worth saying that Corbin Burnes is just straight up one of the most cerebral pitchers in baseball. The second we acquired him, and I mentioned earlier that the cutter made him one of my favorite pitchers to watch, but this article from The Athletic in June 2022 had back then reinforced, like just how much I love the dude. And it really describes how he evaluates each performance. He actually keeps a logbook that the day after every start, he goes back through, watches every single pitch, and he just tracks his execution. He says, I don't care if, I don't care if this fastball was the worst one I've ever, or I don't care if this fastball was hit 485 feet. If I located it well, if I did whatever, I consider that a win. And so he just removes the results from the equation. He goes ahead and he looks at every single pitch and just looks at it and says, that was good, that was bad. That was good, that was bad. And he says he takes into account, factors like given the count, like if he's on 0-0 and throws a pitch, like 6 inches off the plate, that's obviously very bad for the first pitch of an at-bat. If you're on 0-2, you get, like a little bit of wiggle room for that, whatever. But so, he is just looking at how often is he executing, and executing to his plan, because like the argument is if I do, and if I control as the pitcher, if I control what I can control more often than not, and I succeed in doing what I'm attempting to do, I'm going to have, going to have good results. And clearly it shows he has. The other thing he does is he writes a couple sentences on what he calls well, better, how, or what the article called. I don't quite remember. But he just has a couple sentences on what he did well, a couple sentences on what he can do better, and then a couple sentences on how he can do it better. It's as simple as like, I think the article cited attacking early in the zone as something he did well on this one. And then, like staying locked in or staying loose on the bench as something he can do better. It's these little notes that, seem to make very little difference to us as fans, but, for him, help him stay corrected if he feels himself sliding in one direction or another. This is just kind of a reality check, a vibe check for himself after every single start to say, what do I need to do to get that slight amount better and to keep the floor of what I have been doing? So just in every way, this guy is a consummate professional. We really I don't know. I don't think that there's been a pitcher in Baltimore that I've been this excited about. Or maybe not excited, but I've been this confident about, just knowing that he's going to come into this season and just be an absolutely dominant force. There are very few situations where you've got a track record this long of success and somebody available. There's a reason that people do not trade somebody like Corbin Burnes very often. He's had just multiple years of this dominant performance, well regarded as one of the best in the game, no questions asked. Get excited, people. I mean, this guy is just in every single way the real deal. And if Grayson keeps up any semblance of what he did in the second half of last year, Corbin Burnes, Kyle Bradish, and Grayson Rodriguez could be, in terms of trios heading up a rotation, they're easily in the top 5. I'd have to think a little more about it, but that group right there, that core group, and in turn that playoff rotation, that's what we look at for the playoff rotation. That is so good. And say John Means is our number 4, Dean Kramer is our number 5. Dean Kramer is going to be the best number 5 starter in baseball. Maybe except the Dodgers, but the Dodgers sign every pitcher under the sun. So it's we have instantly changed ourselves from rotation has some upside, but the back end of it looks really shaky, and just bumping those bottom guys down one slot has instantly changed it to this rotation is a strength. This rotation is a force. This rotation is actually a positive of the team right now, as opposed to the biggest question mark that we have. So I guess in terms of what we gave up and how that impacts the Orioles in the current moment, I said that we gave up a comp pick, the 34th pick in next year's draft. Honestly, if you take a step back, that pick is actually probably a wash for us. I'm sure it really, really helped Milwaukee get convinced that they would sign on to this deal. But for us, Corbin Burnes has expressed a very strong desire to reach free agency, which is his right. I respect it. We are making this move for right now. If he does not sign an extension, we have no reason to be discouraged. That's the reality. He has performed well, and there's no reason for him to take a discount. I will say this is kind of an interesting thing about him that I actually very much like about him. He was very, very vocal through the arbitration process about how discouraging it is as a player. He said, you go into a meeting, you say, here's why I think I'm worth what I'm asking for. And the team finds all of these ways to just say, you know what, actually, you're not as good as what you're saying. You don't deserve that. Excuse me, just burp. You don't deserve that. You really are not worth what you think you are. And they do all of this stuff to disparage you, discourage you, and basically tear you down to save a couple $100,000. Which, as a player, I cannot imagine anything more discouraging, because clearly, Corbin Burnes is providing them so much value. He's clearly just one of the best in the game, and they're going in there and, still taking him to task and trying to battle over this, and I don't really blame the teams because this is the system as it's set up, but as a player, it's one of the starkest reminders, I think, that this is a business for them and this is your life for you. You are just trying to do the best you can and advocate for yourself. And for them, they're giving the impression that your numbers on a page and you're a calculation of value versus cost. And I'm sure that's really, really discouraging for them. So anyway, I digress. So in all of that, right, Corbin Burnes sees the business side of things, and as such, I think he is less inclined to quote unquote feel loyalty to a team. If the Orioles want to extend him, they will have to pay him very, very handsomely, and they will need to demonstrate that what he goes and finds on the free agent market will not be better than what he has. And that is in terms of the life he has, the coaches he has, the team he has, and of course the cash. Like you got to pay the man if you want him. It's as simple as that. So all of that said, if he does not sign an extension, or if he, I guess, if he gets Tommy John or something, goodness forbid, we will extend him a qualifying offer at the end of the year. He will hit free agency. I hope we try to re-sign him, but if we don't, we'll get a competitive balance pick back. It'll probably be in comp round A, and that's exactly what we gave up. It might not be exactly the 34th pick, but the fact of the matter is that there is a greater than 75% chance that pick comes right back a year from now. So the pick from our standpoint is probably a wash. That's not a player that we actively have in the system that we are losing. It's a player that we potentially could have gotten, and now we will get them next year. And that is that. Joey Ortiz. The Orioles in Joey are down a true shortstop. This is a pretty rare thing in the minors. Defensively, he's a guy whose ceiling is coated in gold. It's a gold glove someday. He's a guy whose floor is probably right now in this moment, he is a top half of the league defensive shortstop every day in the major leagues. There's really no question about it. Beyond that, he has elite contact skills plus exit velocities. His highest exit velo in Norfolk last year would have beat out Ryan Mountcastle for the hardest hit ball on the Orioles in 2023. His max exit velo was 114.9 miles an hour. So, the concept of this light hitting shortstop is not really the case. I just told you 115 miles an hour. He has, really, really good contact rates, particularly in the zone. I saw his zone contact was up at 90%. If he learns to hit the ball in the air a little more and is a bit more selective at the plate, fact of the matter is he's really an offensive force. But all that said, as valuable, as good as he is, the Orioles have a lot of infielders, and we are really, really well positioned to accept that blow. I think he was by pipeline our 6th rated prospect. We have Gunnar, we have Westberg holding down third base, probably Holiday at second. We've got Ortiz, we've got Mateo, we've got all of these infielders. So you're trading from a position of depth, and that's obviously what, everything's a position of depth for the Orioles right now, besides top line starting pitching. But so, this is a blow we can accept. All of that said, I'm going to detour for just 1 second to say Joey being drafted was one of the coolest moments I've had as an Orioles fan. I played with him during one of my summer years, during my college years in the summer. We played in the Cal Ripken League together. He stayed at our house for a little bit. I'm not going to pretend I'm his best friend. This is not a flex, but I'm just sharing a cool moment. I was watching the draft. I saw his name come across the board in the 4th round. And I probably hadn't talked to him in 2 years. And I just texted him in all caps. I'm like, the Orioles just drafted you in the 4th round. Oh my God. This is the craziest moment. And I've gotten to see him a couple times since. This is a dude you should root for. He is, he works so hard. He came out of college as this light hitting, kind of solid contact skills, kind of slapping the ball around, good defender. And then like in the COVID year, the dude, I mean, I guess the simplest thing to say, like his neck just grew out, and there are no performance enhancing drugs. I mean, he went to town. He worked so hard to be able to impact the ball. He kept the flexibility, the instincts, the movements, the mobility that like enabled him to keep up the phenomenal defensive skills that he has. This dude is just special. I cannot say enough good things about him. So I will be buying a navy blue Joey Ortiz jersey the second that he's on the opening day roster in Milwaukee. So cheering for him. All the best to Joey. The last part of what the Orioles gave up, DL Hall. Until this trade, DL Hall was slated to have a shot at the fifth starter role, probably. And he had a free pass to the back end of the bullpen if that didn't work out. We saw him in a relief role last year. It was really, really good. I remember Tyler talking on this pod as we were heading into the postseason. He was saying, who do you call on if you need a big out? And Tyler's answer, despite Yenier Cano, despite Ciano Perez, despite all of this, his answer was DL Hall. And the reason is Hall has this innate ability to strike people out, to miss bats, that a lot of the back end of our pen does not have. Craig Kimbrell obviously will be able to miss a batter too. He's been doing that for a long time. But we do see a good bit of contact toward the back end of our pen, not in a bad way. It's a lot of ground balls. It's good stuff. But DL Hall has this very, very special ability. If you go look, I guess, when he first came up, Saris put out Stuff Plus ratings, and they are normally filtered out for a small sample size, but after DL Hall's first start in the big leagues, Saris said, if that stuff holds, he has the best stuff of any starting pitcher in the major leagues right now. That is the kind of arm that he is. I saw somebody on Twitter say, there is a world still where DL Hall works out to be Randy Johnson. And that's obviously a lot. It's probably not going to turn out to be exactly Randy Johnson, but you've got a guy with a pretty low release, a fastball that can touch triple digits when he's on, great breaking stuff, great changeup. It's just been command his whole career, and I will say that the command has really looked much better since he came back up at the end of last year. I don't know. I think that the Brewers have every intention on giving him the fifth starter spot. I think that, this is an upside play, and they have a good enough bullpen and the ability to keep churning out relievers. We saw Abner Uribe come up last year throwing 102 mile an hour sinkers. They can churn out relievers to cover a short start every once in a while as DL Hall, figures it out as a starter. So I think this is an upside play for them. They get 5 years of him. They get 6 years of Joey. I think that the Orioles have a chance to, feel the impact of DL Hall being gone. In this, speaking to 2024, I think they have the chance to feel that, because I think we do need another arm in the back of the pen. I'm not going to say that we're in a really bad spot as it stands. With this trade, Tyler Wells is probably pushed into the pen. He's been an effective back-end reliever. We saw it even at the end of last year. In terms of lefties in the pen, I was actually kind of surprised. We had probably 4 lefties slated until this trade. We had Hall, we had Danny Coulomb, Ciano Perez, and Cole Irvin. So we've got lefties covered. We've got the ability to match up in the pen. And I guess all in all, we don't really have holes between Kimbrell, Cano, Perez, Coulomb. We have a solid back end of the pen. I just think, it's always a matter of, do you want a little bit more depth there? The more arms, the better. If we can pick up another bullpen arm, I think the team is better off for it. And, we traded one, I think Hall is still considered a prospect. Feel free to double check me on that. But we gave up 2 prospects. One guy who was already in the majors, one guy who was up and down last year. And, largely the farm system is intact. We are in such a good place. So if you want to go and get a reliever, you have all the prospect capital in the world to do so. We've talked about the financials of this team. We know that they have money despite how they want to act. So the free agent market is a bit thinner with like names like Neris and Stevenson and such going off the board, but we have options to acquire a reliever and bolster the back end of this pen. I guess some of the reactions to the trade, not just from me, you've clearly heard mine. I like it. But reactions to the trade, we heard Jake Peavy on MLB Network. He was talking and he said the Orioles are immediate World Series contenders the second that they step into spring training. One NL executive in an article I saw used the word scary about the Orioles. And then the Athletic writers gave a quick, just grade of the trade. All four of them gave the Orioles an A. The fact of the matter is the Orioles dealt from, a position of depth. This is why we have accumulated prospect talent. This is what we've been waiting for. This is the moment that the Orioles have done all of this work to build up to. You really cannot say enough about like the job that Elias and his group have done to build up talent in this system, in this organization. That is what enables us to make this move. Excuse me. That's what enables us to make this move. We just acquired, as I laid out for you guys, we just acquired one of the top 5 starting pitchers in the game, no questions asked, and we did it without even really putting a dent in our farm system, without trading anybody, who, like, assuming DL Hall was in the back end of the pen, he wasn't going to be our closer. There's a chance he could have had some setup stuff, but we've got other setup men. We saw Cano be an all-star last year. We gave up nobody from the major league team who was about to have this like crazy otherworldly impact on the team. We gave up a competitive balance pick that we are probably going to get back next year. It really this was masterful. This was masterful. We got an immediate upgrade in the most significant area of need and gave up next to nothing from the bottom line of the Orioles in 2024. I'm so impressed. I'm recording this a day and a half after the trade, and I'm still struggling to really, really put words together. This was so well done, and the Orioles are so well set up to repeat as division champions, to head into the playoffs with, again, just the most fearsome 3-headed monster. The fact that Grayson Rodriguez, who was the top pitching prospect in baseball for literal years, is just going to be your number 3. It's almost comical. He comes out and he's throwing 100 miles an hour, and your 2 guys have already gone, and you're on your 3rd pitcher, and we're just like, yeah, we got another one. He's right here. He's going to come out and he's going to shove, and that's it. It sets us up to compete with anybody in Major League Baseball for a World Series this year, 2024. I am over the moon excited. I had a hard time sleeping last night. I just kept refreshing Twitter. Orioles Twitter was going off. I was reading reactions, and from all of the publications, watching clips. It's just this is what the Orioles needed. This is what we've been waiting for. This is a game changer. This is a move that a contending team makes to ensure they are the top dog, and we did it. I tweeted out last night. I was like, hand up. I was starting to lose faith. I thought it was going to be a Michael Lorenzen, or we got connected to Domingo Germán. Whatever. I'm not going to even go into it because it didn't happen. But I had started to believe that was all we were going to do. And, credit to the front office, credit to Elias. They kept plugging away. They understood the strength we had at AAA. They understood we have what other teams want. And they went and they made the exchange in a way that didn't hurt us and just gave us all of the benefit in the world. And I'll say, like, I don't think it's a bad trade for the Brewers. I just talked about how, like, wildly valuable both of those guys could be. And, it's a borderline first round pick that they also got in addition. So for 1 year of a player, I don't think that it's a bad idea by the Brewers. But for the Orioles, it's just masterful. It is just so, so good to not hurt yourself in order to, acquire this premium talent. I got to stop. I'll just keep talking all night, so I got to stop. Be excited. I think Corbin Burnes will be starting for us opening day. I think that we have so many reasons to be excited about this year. We are going to get together. It's been a lot of solo pods. I think we've all been trying to kind of develop this skill before we get into the year because, like we said, we're going to be putting out more episodes. It's going to be a bit more fast-paced, a bit shorter. So we're trying to develop this for ourselves so that we can keep it entertaining when we're not all together. But that said, we're going to get together pretty soon. Spring training is around the corner. Obviously, exciting things are happening in Baltimore. So we're going to get together and talk pretty soon. I am looking forward to the start of spring training. We're going to go see some stuff in spring training. We as in me. I'm going to be over there. And yeah, I guess I will wrap it up there. If you're liking what you're hearing, please, reach out to us. Like, I guess the first thing, we love, like, talking. We created this podcast because we all enjoy talking about baseball together. And the more and more people that we can include in that little circle, the better off we are. We all love this team. We all have fun with it. So, would love to hear from you. Twitter, you can email us at thewarehousepod@gmail.com. You can, we're around. If you comment, if you comment on the pod, we'll probably get around to it. We're on YouTube. We try to respond to comments over there. We just hit 100 subscribers, so thank you all for that. For the folks watching the video. We're around. Please give us some favorable ratings and subscriptions and whatever if you are so inclined. We always appreciate it. Always appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. This has been the Warehouse Pod. My name's Elijah, and thank you very much.